You either had to live near the sea and figure out how to evaporate that salty water, or you had to dig it out of the ground. Suddenly, you've got entire trade routes dedicated to moving this white gold across continents. It was used in rituals, considered a symbol of purity, and was thought to ward off evil spirits. Next time you spill some salt and feel compelled to toss a pinch over your shoulder, you can thank these ancient beliefs. In China, salt was so important that the government controlled its production and distribution. They had salt commissioners, which sounds like a job straight out of a fantasy novel. We developed new ways to preserve food, canning, refrigeration, that sort of thing. You'd think salt would lose its value, and, in a way, it did. It's not exactly the hot commodity it once was. But our relationship with salt is far from over. Today, we use it for everything from dicing roads to water treatment. It's in our food, our medicines, even our electronics. We might not be paid in salt anymore, but it's still an essential part of our lives. Halt! In the name of the salt commissioner, I demand to taste your soup. We've got sea salt, rock salt, pink Himalayan salt. Heck, it's probably someone out there selling artisanal, small batch, organic salt harvested by mermaids under a full moon. It's been a silent witness to thousands of years of human history, from ancient empires to modern dinner tables. Who knew something so common could have such an extraordinary story? The point is, we're still obsessed with the stuff, just in a different way. If you enjoyed this salty tale, don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, whether you're a night owl or an early bird, there's always time for a little bit of history. Sleep tight and don't let the salt monsters bite. Good night and sweet dreams. You're participating in a tradition as old as civilization itself. Maybe you'll find yourself floating in the Dead Sea or traversing the Silk Road with a caravan of salt traders. Whatever your subconscious cooks up, I hope it's seasoned to perfection. You're holding a piece of history, a mineral that shaped empires, sparked revolutions, and continues to influence our world in ways we might not even realize. In Africa, salt was traded ounce for ounce with gold across the Sahara Desert. Picture caravans of camels trudging through the scorching sand, all for some knackle, okay? Though maybe wait until after this video to start throwing salt around your bedroom. Hey, the Romans, always ahead of the curve, even paid their soldiers in salt. Europe is in full swing, and guess what's still causing drama? That's right, our friend Salt. Venice, that beautiful city of canals and massed balls, built a good chunk of its wealth on the salt trade. They had a monopoly that would make modern tech giants jealous. Meanwhile, in France, there was a tax on salt called the gabelle. It was so unpopular that it contributed to the French Revolution. Imagine being so mad about the price of salt that you decide to overthrow the monarchy. Talk about salty. That's where we get the word salary from, the Latin salarium, literally meaning salt money. Imagine trying to explain that to your bank today. Yes, I'd like to deposit these 3 bags of salt into my checking account, please. During the American Civil War, the Union forces targeted the South's salt works, knowing it would cripple their ability to preserve food. In India, Gandhi's famous Salt March was a protest against British salt monopolies. Who knew that such a small, humble mineral could be at the center of so much conflict? And let me tell you, ancient mining techniques weren't exactly OSHA approved. It was dangerous, time-consuming work, which naturally made salt pretty darn valuable. Well, salt. But why? Why was this humble mineral so darn valuable? But only if you genuinely find my salty tales entertaining. And while you're at it, drop a comment letting me know where you're retuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always a treat to see our global community coming together over, well, salt. All right, let's set the mood. Dim those lights. Maybe light a candle if you're feeling fancy. Now, picture this. It's the ancient world, and salt isn't just that white stuff you sprinkle on your fries. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? Salt has been a part of human history since before we even started writing things down. Our ancestors figured out pretty quickly that this stuff was essential for survival. It wasn't just about making your food taste better, though, let's be honest, that bland mammoth meat probably needed all the help it could get. No, salt was a preservative, a way to keep food from spoiling in a world without refrigerators. Imagine that? No late-night raids to the fridge for leftover pizza. It's the horror. But salt wasn't just hanging around, waiting to be picked up. Oh no, that would be too easy. Getting your hands on salt was a whole ordeal. As civilizations grew, so did the demand for salt. But it wasn't all about preservation and paychecks. Salt played a huge role in religion and superstition too. Now, let's fast forward a bit to the Middle Ages. But it wasn't just Europe getting in on the action. As we drift into more recent history, salt continued to play a surprisingly significant role. But here's where things get really interesting. And let's not forget the culinary world. Salt isn't just a seasoning, it's an art form. As we wrap up our salty saga, take a moment to appreciate that little shaker on your dining table. So, the next time you reach for the salt, remember, you're not just seasoning your food. And with that, my fellow history enthusiasts, I'll leave you to drift off into salty dreams. Okay? As always, thank you for joining me on this journey through the annals of history. Hey there, sleepyheads. Tonight, we're diving into the fascinating world of fruits and vegetables in ancient times. Before we begin our journey through history's garden, take a moment to adjust your pillows, dim your lights, and maybe light a candle if you're feeling fancy. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in an ancient marketplace, surrounded by the vibrant colors and enticing aromas of fruits and vegetables that have long since vanished from our modern world. Do you and forget to like this video and subscribe if you enjoyed drifting off to the sound of my voice rambling about obscure historical facts. And let me know in the comments where you're retuning in from and what time it is for you. This unassuming fruit played a starring role in many ancient cultures. Pharaohs were often buried with date palm fronds, ensuring they'd have a tasty snack in the afterlife. It's comforting to know that even in death, the ancient Egyptians prioritized their sweet tooth. In fact, archaeologists have found evidence of fig cultivation dating back to 5000 BCE in the Jordan Valley. While not technically a fruit or vegetable, this golden nectar was highly prized in the ancient world. This pungent bulb was so revered by the ancient Egyptians that it was often used in religious ceremonies. Workers building the pyramids were even paid in onions, garlic, and radishes. Cultivated for at least 6,000 years, the olive tree has been a symbol of peace, wisdom, and prosperity in many Mediterranean cultures. The ancient Greeks believed that the olive tree was a gift from the goddess Athena. While it may not have been the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden, apples have played a significant role in human history. The wild ancestor of our modern apple, Malus sieversii, still grows in the mountains of Central Asia. From these small, tart fruits, humans have bred thousands of varieties, each with its own unique flavor and purpose. And as you drift off to sleep, perhaps you'll dream of ancient marketplaces filled with the vibrant colors and enticing aromas of fruits and vegetables long forgotten. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, whether you're counting sheep or counting ancient grape varieties, a good night's sleep is always in season. Sweet dreams, history lovers. In fact, legend has it that Athena and Poseidon once competed for the patronage of Athens. Poseidon struck the ground with his trident, creating a saltwater spring, while Athena offered an olive tree. From the first farmers experimenting with wild grains to the complex agricultural societies that followed, our relationship with plants has shaped the course of human history. The Athenians, displaying a remarkable preference for snacks over hydration, chose Athena's gift. It seems that in ancient Egypt, a strong-smelling lunch was considered fair compensation for a hard day's work. Cultivated for both eating and winemaking, grapes have been with us for thousands of years. The oldest known winery, discovered in Armenia, dates back to around 4100 BC. Imagine those ancient vintners carefully crushing grapes and storing the juice in clay pots, patiently waiting for that magical fermentation process to work its magic. Little did they know that their experiments would lead to countless headaches and regrettable dance moves in the millennia to come. The Greeks and Romans used it not only as a sweetener, but also as a form of currency. These versatile legumes quickly became a cornerstone of Chinese cuisine and culture. In Norse mythology, the goddess Ican was the keeper of magical apples that granted the gods eternal youth. It seems that even in the realm of myth and legend, an apple a day really did keep the doctor away, or at least the Grim Reaper. The process of fermenting soybeans to create soy sauce was developed during the Western Han Dynasty. Around 2,200 years ago, the Inca civilization revered the potato, seeing it as a gift from the gods. They even developed a method of freeze-drying potatoes called chuno, allowing them to store the crop for years. Imagine having a 5-year-old baked potato, a culinary experience we'd probably better off leaving in the past. Imagine the first person who looked at a pile of moldy beans and thought, yes, this will make an excellent condiment. Culinary visionaries, those ancient Chinese. Imagine paying your taxes with jars of honey, sticky, but certainly more pleasant than our modern methods. Maize, or corn, as we know it today, was first domesticated in Mexico about 10,000 years ago. From its humble beginnings as a wild grass called teosinte, maize was selectively bred over thousands of years to become the versatile crop we know today. Imagine that, while woolly mammoths were still roaming the earth, someone was carefully tending to their fig trees, dreaming of the sweet, sticky fruit to come. It's always intriguing to see who's joining our little nocturnal history club from around the globe. Now, let us settle in and let the gentle crackle of our virtual fireplace transport us back to a time when a simple apple could start a war and a humble onion was worth its weight in gold. In the lush valleys of Mesopotamia, often called the cradle of civilization, our ancestors were busy cultivating some of the first domesticated plants. Okay, picture, if you will, fields of golden wheat swaying in the warm breeze, their kernels plump with promise. It was here, around 10,000 years ago, that humans first began to experiment with agriculture, forever changing the course of our species. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, for we had neatly planted rows and irrigation systems. Our distant relatives were foragers, wandering the land in search of edible plants. They sampled berries, nuts, and leafy greens, learning through trial and error which ones were safe to eat and which ones might send them on an unplanned journey to meet their ancestors. As we drift deeper into our historical slumber, let's turn our attention to the mighty fig. The ancient Egyptians were particularly fond of dates. These sugary delights were not only a staple food, but also a symbol of fertility and abundance. Speaking of sweet things, let's not forget about honey. As we meander through the annals of agricultural history, we come across the humble onion. Let's drift over to ancient China, where the cultivation of soybeans began as early as 7000 BCE. In the Americas, long before Columbus stumbled upon the New World, indigenous peoples were cultivating an impressive array of crops. The potato, that humble tuber that would later become a staple food across much of the world, was first cultivated in the Andes Mountains of South America. As we continue our drowsy journey through the produce aisle of history, let's not forget the mighty olive. Now, as our eyelids grow heavy and our thoughts begin to drift, let's ponder the humble grape. As we near the end of our historical produce tour, let's not forget the mighty apple. In ancient Greece, tossing an apple to someone was considered a declaration of love. As our journey through the ancient world of fruits and vegetables comes to a close, take a moment to appreciate the rich tapestry of flavors and traditions that our ancestors have passed down to us. So the next time you bite into a crisp apple or savor a juicy tomato, remember that you're tasting the culmination of thousands of years of human ingenuity and nature's bounty. Thank you for joining me on this sleepy journey through the produce aisle of history. Hey there, welcome to another soothing journey through the pages of history. Tonight, we're delving into a topic that might make your stomach rumble. But don't worry, it's designed to lull you into a peaceful slumber. We're exploring what people ate during famines throughout history. Before we begin, if you're enjoying these nightly excursions into the past, consider giving this video a gentle tap on the like button and subscribing to our channel. It helps more than you know. And while you're at it, why not share where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you? It's always fascinating to see our global community coming together in the quiet hours. Now, let's set the scene. Imagine you're curled up in a cozy armchair, a warm blanket draped over your legs. As the soft crackle of a fireplace fills the room. The flames cast a warm, flickering glow, creating the perfect ambience for our historical lullaby. Close your eyes if you like. Let us journey back in time to explore the ingenious and often desperate ways people found sustenance during history's harshest famines. Our first stop takes us to Ireland in the mid-19th century. The Great Famine, also known as the Irish Potato Famine, struck the Emerald Isle with devastating force. As the potato crop failed year after year, the Irish people, particularly the poor, faced an unimaginable crisis. With their staple food gone, they turned to whatever they could find to stave off hunger. Nettles, normally considered a pesky weed, became a lifeline. These stinging plants were carefully gathered and boiled into a nutritious soup. The Irish also foraged for wild garlic, dandelions, and sorrel, turning their countryside into a desperate pantry. Seaweed, abundant along the coast, was collected and eaten fresh or dried for later use. It might not have been the most appetizing meal, but it provided crucial nutrients during those lean years. As we drift further back in time, we find ourselves in medieval Europe, where famines were an all-too-common occurrence. During these periods of scarcity, people got creative with their cooking. Tree bark, particularly from elm and birch trees, was ground into a flour-like substance and mixed with whatever grains were available to make a dense, chewy bread. It wasn't exactly a gourmet meal, but it filled empty stomachs and provided some sustenance. In times of extreme hunger, even leather became a potential food source. Boots, belts, and other leather items were boiled to soften them, then chewed for whatever nutrition could be extracted. It's a stark reminder of how desperate situations can lead to unimaginable choices. Let's sail across the ocean now to colonial America. During the harsh winter of 1609 to 1610 in Jamestown, Virginia, the settlers faced what became known as the starving time. With food supplies dwindling and hostile relations with the local Native Americans, the colonists resorted to eating whatever they could find. This included rats, mice, and even shoe leather. In the most extreme cases, there were reports of cannibalism, a grim testament to the depths of human desperation in times of famine. As we continue our journey through time, we find ourselves in ancient Egypt during the years when the Nile failed to flood. The Egyptians, whose civilization depended on the river's annual inundation, faced severe food shortages when this natural cycle was disrupted. During these lean times, they turned to the Nile itself for sustenance. Lotus roots and papyrus plants became staple foods. The seeds of the lotus were ground into flour, while the stems and roots were eaten raw or cooked. The ancient Egyptians also became adept at preserving foods during times of plenty to prepare for potential famines. Fish were dried and salted, while fruits like dates and figs were dried and stored. These preserved foods became crucial during times of scarcity, providing a lifeline when fresh food was unavailable. As we drift further east, we find ourselves in ancient China, where famines were often recorded in historical texts. During these times of hardship, the Chinese people showed remarkable resourcefulness. They turned to famine foods such as tree bark, grass roots, and wild herbs. One particularly interesting famine food was earth bean, a type of wild yam that grew underground. These tubers were dug up, cleaned, and cooked, providing a source of carbohydrates when other crops failed. In some regions of China, clay was even consumed during extreme famines. known as edible earth. Certain types of clay were believed to have nutritional value and were mixed with whatever small amounts of grain or vegetables were available to create a filling, if not particularly nutritious, meal. Let's now travel to the frozen landscapes of the Arctic, where the Inuit people have lived for thousands of years. While not typically associated with famines in the traditional sense, the harsh Arctic environment often led to periods of extreme food scarcity. During these times, the Inuit relied heavily on their traditional knowledge of the land and sea. One surprising food source was the partially digested contents of caribou stomachs. This might sound unappetizing, but it provided essential vitamins and nutrients, particularly vitamin C, which is scarce in the Arctic diet. The Inuit also made use of every part of the animals they hunted, including organs that are often discarded in other cultures. Seal liver, for example, is rich in vitamins and was highly prized during times of scarcity, as we slowly make our way back to the present. Let's pause in World War II, Europe. The war brought severe food shortages to many countries, leading to innovative and sometimes bizarre food substitutes. In the Netherlands, during what became known as the Hunger Winter of 1945, people resorted to eating tulip bulbs. These bulbs, normally prized for their beautiful flowers, became a source of calories when nothing else was available. In Britain, the Ministry of Food promoted the use of mock foods to supplement rationed items. Mock banana was made from parsnips mashed with banana flavoring, while mock goose was crafted from lentils and vegetables. These creative substitutions helped to vary the diet during times of scarcity and boosted morale by providing a semblance of pre-war variety. As our journey through time comes to a close, we're reminded of the incredible resilience and creativity of the human spirit in the face of adversity. From tree bark bread to tulip bulb stews, people throughout history have found ways to survive even the most challenging circumstances. The soft crackle of the fireplace is growing quieter now, and the warm glow of the flames is dimming. As you drift off to sleep, perhaps you'll dream of abundant harvests and tables laden with food. Remember, in our modern world of plenty, we have much to be grateful for. Good night, sleep tight, and may your dreams be sweet and your belly full. Hey there, night owls and history buffs. Tonight, we're diving into the delicious and often overlooked world of street food in ancient civilizations. These were culinary traditions that defied time, tantalized taste buds, and fueled empires long before the concept of fast food ever existed. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to dim the lights, maybe light a candle for that soft, flickering glow, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Street food wasn't just a quick bite for the Romans. It was a way of life. The average Roman citizen, living in cramped insulae without proper cooking facilities, relied heavily on these street vendors for their daily sustenance. But first, if you're enjoying what I do here, consider giving this video a gentle tap on the like button and subscribing. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. So let me know in the comments where you're retuning in from and what time it is for you. In Babylon, we're alive with the sights and smells of early street food. Here, flatbreads were the foundation of many meals, baked in clay ovens and often topped with onions, garlic, and various spices. These breads were the perfect portable meal for busy Mesopotamians on the go. Grilled or dried fish, often seasoned with cumin and coriander, was a common sight and smell in Egyptian marketplaces. And for those with a sweet tooth, there were honey-drenched cakes and dates stuffed with nuts, providing a quick energy boost in the hot Egyptian sun. Are you wrapped up in a cozy blanket, or perhaps listening while you drift off to sleep? One popular item was the tamaya, the ancestor of our modern falafel. The market of Tetelako was renowned for its diversity of foods, including tamales steamed in corn husks and filled with everything from fish to frog. It played a crucial role in the social fabric of these civilizations, as for many, especially the poor, it was their primary source of nutrition. In the markets of Cusco, vendors sold choclo, a type of large kerneled corn, often served with cheese or meat. They also offered chicha, a fermented corn drink that was both a refreshment and a part of religious ceremonies. In some cases, it even influenced politics and religion. Vendors also sold insects like grasshoppers and ant eggs, considered delicacies and rich in protein. Or perhaps you'll find yourself in the bustling markets of Tenochtitlan, sampling exotic fruits and savory tamales. The gentle crackle of our virtual fireplace will continue, providing a soothing backdrop for your dreams. Sleep well, and remember, history is all around us, even in the simplest of meals. Good night and sweet dreams of ancient feasts. Wherever your dreams take you, may they be filled with the rich flavors and vibrant scenes of ancient street food. Monks would walk through the streets with their alms poles, and people would offer them food. This practice not only fed the monks, but also allowed ordinary people to gain merit through their generosity. Made from ground fava beans mixed with herbs and spices, then fried to golden perfection. These crispy balls were a favorite among all social classes. These were small shops with large counters containing deep terracotta jars, or dolia, sunken into them. Remember, history isn't just about grand battles and mighty rulers. It's also about the everyday experiences of ordinary people, including what they ate and how they ate it. From the Thermopylae of Rome to the bustling markets of Tenochtitlan, street food has been feeding people, bringing communities together, and shaping cultures for millennia. You're not just satisfying your hunger, you're taking part in a culinary legacy that has nourished emperors and commoners alike, fueled the building of pyramids and the conquests of empires. It was the staple food of the Roman legions, providing them with the energy needed for their conquests. Here, the concept of street food was already well established. Vendors selling steamed buns filled with savory meats and vegetables, bao, as they were called, are still popular today, a testament to their enduring appeal. The street food culture in ancient civilizations was a social phenomenon, a place where people from all walks of life could mingle and share a meal. In Greece, for instance, the agora wasn't just a marketplace, but a hub of social and political life. Here, you could find vendors selling skewers of grilled meats, known as obelis calignia, alongside philosophers debating the nature of existence. Vendors would serve it hot, often topped with cheese, olive oil, or even honey for those with a sweet tooth. These flaky, layered pastries were often filled with sweet bean paste or savory meats, and were perfect for eating on the go. The streets of Chang'an, the capital of the Tang dynasty, were said to be lined with vendors selling these delectable treats. These jars held an array of ready-to-eat foods, from hearty stews to legumes and grains. The counters were often decorated with vibrant frescoes depicting the foods on offer or scenes from daily life. Now, imagine yourself strolling through the bustling streets of ancient Rome. The air thick with the aroma of sizzling meats and freshly baked bread. Picture the Thermopolium, the ancient equivalent of our modern fast food joints. This pungent condiment was made by fermenting fish intestines in salt, and it was used to flavor almost everything. The production of garum was so important that entire industries sprung up around it, with some of the best varieties, fetching prices comparable to the finest wines. One of the most popular street foods in ancient Rome was the poules, a porridge-like dish made from ground grains. But let's not forget about the garum, the fish sauce that was the ketchup of the ancient world. As we drift further back in time, we find ourselves in the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, where the streets of yore and the markets of ancient Egypt. Street vendors offered a variety of foods to satisfy hungry shoppers and workers. The Nile River provided not just water for crops, but also a bounty of fish that found their way into street food. Traveling east, we find ourselves in the ancient streets of China during the Han Dynasty. One particularly interesting street food from ancient China was the yubing, or oil cake. But it wasn't just about the food itself, okay? The ancient Aztecs had their own vibrant street food scene in Tenochtitlan, okay? As we drift through these ancient streets, it's important to remember that street food wasn't just about convenience or taste. In ancient India, for example, the Buddhist tradition of almsgiving led to the development of a unique street food culture. The Incan Empire, spanning much of western South America, had its own street food traditions. So we come to the end of our journey through the street foods of ancient civilizations. It's clear that this culinary tradition is as old as civilization itself. So the next time you grab a quick bite from a food truck or a street vendor, remember that you're participating in a tradition that stretches back thousands of years. As we wind down this historical journey, hope these tales of ancient street food have satisfied your curiosity and perhaps even made you a bit hungry. So, as you drift off to sleep tonight, maybe you'll dream of strolling through the streets of ancient Rome, the aroma of freshly baked bread and sizzling meats filling the air. And with that, I'll leave you to your slumber. Hey there, night owls and history buffs. Tonight, we're diving into the deliciously greasy world of ancient Roman junk food. So, before we get started, take a moment to dim those lights. Maybe light a candle if you're feeling fancy, and let's settle in for a cozy evening of historical snacking. Picture this. You're strolling through the bustling streets of ancient Rome, the air thick with the scent of olive oil and exotic spices. But for the average Joe, or should I say, average guys on the streets of Rome, fast food was the way to go. And let me tell you, they had some interesting options that might make our modern fast food look positively gourmet. Your stomach growls, and you're in the mood for something quick, cheap, and probably not all that good for you. It was a fermented fish sauce that the Romans slathered on just about everything. The Romans didn't just use garum as a condiment. Oh no, they took it to the next level. But this wasn't your artisanal sourdough or fancy ciabatta. No, this was dense, chewy bread that could probably double as a weapon in a pinch. They'd often stuff it with olives or cheese, creating a sort of proto-sandwich that you could easily eat on the go. The Roman diet, especially for the lower classes, was heavy on carbs and low on fruits and vegetables. Picture yourself wandering through the suburba, the working-class district of the city. The air is thick with the smell of frying oil and wood smoke. Street vendors are calling out their wares, trying to tempt you with their latest culinary creations. Maybe you stop for a snack of fried dormice. Yes, that was the thing. Or perhaps you're in the mood for some roasted chestnuts. Sure, we might still indulge in the occasional greasy burger or late-night pizza, but at least we're not chowing down on dormice or sipping fish sauce cocktails. Although, who knows? Maybe in a couple thousand years, people will look back on our eating habits with the same mixture of fascination and horror as the crackling of our virtual fireplace fades away. I hope these tales of ancient Roman junk food have lulled you into a peaceful state, ready for a night of restful sleep. Remember, whether you're remunching on chickpeas in ancient Rome or scrolling through a late-night menu in the 21st century, we're all connected by our shared love of a good snack. Obesity was actually a sign of wealth and status. Can you imagine? Who knows? Maybe you'll dream of strolling through the streets of ancient Rome, a cone of fried chickpeas in one hand and a cup of pasca in the other. Sweet dreams, and buona notte. They may not have had drive-thrus or delivery apps, but they certainly knew how to satisfy a craving for something quick, cheap, and probably not all that good for you. These were notorious places, frequented by the lower classes, sailors, and other unsavory characters. Flamingo tongues were considered a delicacy among the upper classes. They'd serve them up at fancy dinner parties, probably alongside some peacock brains or stuffed sow's udders. It's enough to make you appreciate that bag of chips in your pantry, isn't it? The wine was cheap and often watered down, but that didn't stop people from overindulging. In fact, there were laws against politicians entering Popany, as it was considered beneath their dignity. Can you imagine if we had laws like that today? Instead of gym selfies, rich Romans would be posting pictures of their double chins on whatever the ancient equivalent of Instagram was. They mixed it with wine to create a drink called oenagarum. That's right, they were knocking back fish sauce cocktails like it was no big deal. Makes that pumpkin spice latte seem pretty tame, doesn't it? Imagine if we took ketchup and cranked the umami up to 11. One of their favorite treats was globy, which were basically deep-fried cheese balls rolled in honey and poppy seeds. These were a common street food, often sold alongside olives and bread. It was the Roman equivalent of grabbing a protein bar on your way to work, except instead of unwrapping a bar, you'd be peeling an egg while dodging horse-drawn carts and trying not to step in whatever the horses left behind. Imagine a mozzarella stick had a baby with a donut, and you're in the right ballpark. Yep, you heard that right. They used lead acetate as a sweetener, which they called sugar of lead. This was the energy drink of its day, a mixture of vinegar, water, and herbs that was popular among soldiers and laborers. It was cheap, it was refreshing, and it probably tasted about as good as you'd expect vinegar water to taste. But when you're working on building an aqueduct in the hot Mediterranean sun, I guess you can't be too picky. It made the wine taste sweeter and preserved it longer. Of course, it also slowly poisoned them. But hey, you can't have everything, right? These little balls of deliciousness were often served at parties and were probably just as addictive then as they would be now. It was made by layering fish guts, salt, and herbs in big vats and letting it all ferment in the sun for months. The result, pungent, salty sauce that was the MSG of the ancient world. Sound familiar? Well, turns out our Roman ancestors were so different from us when it came to satisfying those late-night cravings. Now, if you're enjoying these nightly journeys through time, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. Now, I know what you're thinking. Chickpeas, really? But hear me out. These little legumes were the Roman equivalent of our French fries. Street vendors would fry them up in olive oil, sprinkle them with salt and herbs, and sell them in paper cones. Imagine walking down the Via Appia, munching on a cone of crispy, salty chickpeas. Not too shabby, right? And while you're at it, drop a comment, letting me know where you're retuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the globe. Alright, let's ease into tonight's journey together. Now, when we think of Roman cuisine, we might imagine lavish banquets with exotic dishes like stuffed dormice or flamingo tongues. First up on the menu, the humble chickpea. But if you were in the mood for something a bit more substantial, you might head to a thermopolium. These were the fast food joints of ancient Rome, complete with counters lined with large clay pots sunk into the masonry. These pots would be filled with various stews and soups, kept warm by hot coals underneath. It was basically the Roman version of a 7-Eleven hot dog roller, but with slightly less questionable hygiene practices. Okay, let's talk about the star of the Roman junk food scene, garum. Okay, this stuff was everywhere, and I mean everywhere. Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. Now, if you had a bit of a sweet tooth, the Romans had you covered there too. But let's not forget about bread. The Romans were big on their bread, and they had bakeries on practically every corner. Okay, here is a fun fact that might keep you up at night. The Romans used to put lead in their wine. Speaking of drinks, let's talk about Pascha. Now, if you're thinking all this sounds a bit unhealthy, well, you'd be right. But let's get back to the streets of Rome. As you weave your way through the crowded streets, you might come across a papina, a kind of ancient Roman dive bar. Now, let's talk about one of the strangest Roman snacks, flamingo tongues. Yes, you heard that right. But not all Roman food was quite so exotic, okay? They were also big fans of eggs, particularly hard-boiled eggs. As we wind down our culinary tour of ancient Rome, let's take a moment to appreciate how far we've come. So the next time you're standing in line at your favorite fast food joint, spare a thought for your Roman ancestors. And with that, my fellow history enthusiasts, it's time for us to say goodnight. So close your eyes, let the gentle hum of history wash over you, and drift off to sleep. Hey there, sleepy heads. Tonight, We're diving into the aromatic world of spices and how they shaped the ancient world. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let's begin our journey through the spice-scented corridors of history. But before we embark on this fragrant journey, take a moment to adjust your pillows, dim your lights, and maybe light a scented candle if you're feeling fancy. The air is thick with the pungent aroma of exotic spices from far-off lands. Cinnamon from Ceylon, pepper from India, and frankincense from Arabia. India was to spices what Silicon Valley is to tech startups, the place where it all began. Black pepper, the king of spices, was so valuable that it was often referred to as black gold. Pliny the Elder once complained about Rome's appetite for pepper, lamenting, there is no year in which India does not drain the Roman Empire of 50 million sesterces. That's a lot of denarii for some extra kick in your garum sauce. Spices also played a role in cultural exchange and understanding. As traders moved along the Silk Road and across the Indian Ocean, they didn't just exchange goods, they exchanged ideas, technologies, and beliefs. It's kind of poetic when you think about it. These tiny seeds and bark shavings were the catalysts for some of the most significant cultural interactions in history. They used cinnamon and cassia in their embalming processes, believing these aromatic preservatives would help their pharaoh smell fresh in the afterlife. The next time you sprinkle some cinnamon on your latte or add a dash of cumin to your curry, remember that you're participating in a tradition that's older than most civilizations. You're not just seasoning your food, you're tasting history. The Greeks, too, were all about that spice life. Ships braving treacherous seas and explorers venturing into unknown lands, all in pursuit of these aromatic treasures. Some of us might be fiery like chili, others mellow like vanilla, but together we create a blend that's uniquely human. So sleep well, my fellow spice enthusiasts, and may your dreams be as rich and complex as the history we've explored tonight. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the nutmeg bugs bite. Let the soothing thoughts of cinnamon, cloves, and cardamom carry you off to a peaceful slumber, where you might dream of ancient bazaars filled with the intoxicating scents of faraway lands. Alexander the Great's conquests weren't just about building a massive empire. They were also about securing those spice routes. It's said that when Alexander reached India, he was more excited about the pepper than the elephant. I mean, can you blame him? Elephants are cool and all, but have you ever had a perfectly seasoned dish? Talk about planning ahead. I mean, who doesn't want to arrive in the land of the dead, smelling like a snickerdoodle? The Middle Ages saw the rise of the spice monopoly, with Venice becoming the spice capital of Europe. The Venetians controlled the trade routes and marked up prices faster than a modern-day ticket scalper at a sold-out concert. In the 17th century, they were so desperate to corner the nutmeg market that they traded the island of Manhattan to the TH in exchange for the tiny nutmeg-producing island of Run. Yes, you heard that right. The entire island of Manhattan for a speck of land that produced nutmeg. I bet the Dutch are still kicking themselves over that one. New Amsterdam became New York, and all they got was a lifetime supply of eggnog seasoning. This spice stranglehold was one of the driving forces behind the age of exploration. Columbus wasn't just looking for a new route to India for the scenery. He was after those sweet, sweet spices. These weren't just flavors to tickle the taste buds of wealthy patricians. They were the lifeblood of empires, the catalyst for exploration, and sometimes the spark that ignited wars. In ancient times, spices weren't just for flavor. They were your local pharmacy. Ginger for nausea, turmeric for inflammation, garlic for everything. These spices were so valued for their medicinal properties that they often cost more than precious metals. Imagine going to your doctor and being prescribed a course of saffron. Your wallet would be crying, but at least your pajama game would be on point. If you're enjoying these sleep stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely find them helpful for your nightly wind-down routine. They were status symbols, medicines, and even currency. A Roman soldier might be paid in salt. That is where we get the word salary from, by the way. Imagine trying to explain to your landlord that you'd be paying rent in paprika this month. It's no wonder the spice trade was the backbone of many ancient economies. And hey, drop a comment letting me know where you're retuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see our global community of insomniacs and history buffs coming together. Now, let us settle in and let the gentle crackle of our virtual fireplace transport us back to a time when a pinch of pepper was worth its weight in gold. Picture, if you will, the bustling markets of ancient Rome. You see, in the ancient world, spices weren't just for seasoning your grandmother's stew. But let's rewind a bit, shall we? Long before Rome was even a twinkle in Romulus's eye, the Egyptians were already hip to the spice game. As we drift further into our historical slumber, let's sail eastward to India, the jewel in the crown of the spice world. But it wasn't just the Romans who were spice crazy. No, let's sprinkle in a little medieval flavor to our historical spice rack. As we slowly stir our historical pot, let's not forget the impact of spices on medicine. The quest for spices led to some pretty wild adventures and misadventures. Take the Dutch, for example. But it wasn't all about greed and conquest. As we neared the end of our spicy sleep story, let's take a moment to appreciate how these ancient trade routes have shaped our modern world. So as you drift off to sleep tonight, surrounded by the gentle crackle of our virtual fireplace, imagine the caravans crossing vast deserts, and remember, the grand scheme of things, we're all just specks of spice in the great recipe of history.